you stand on Jalen Hurts as like a runner in the design?
Yeah, that's a great question. He's very uniquely talented in terms of that athletic ability. It's something he's been effective with throughout his career. That's part of what makes him such a special talent. But he does a lot of things well. I think he's really operated through all facets of the offense comfortably. But the piece of him as an athlete in the running game is something unique that those are elements we can lean into a little bit as well.
Sean, can I just follow up with you? Obviously, being under center a lot, would you restrict having those at least +1 type of zone read and RPO? Does that restrict him from doing that as much, or we've seen before, I guess, Malik Willis being an example of that? Is there room for him to have that facet of the offense?
Yeah, I think there's definitely room for both. There's room for both, and I think a lot of it is just dependent on, week by week or situationally. There's a lot of different things that come up throughout the game, from one week to the next, things you're seeing from the defense. So I think to have all those different elements in your back pocket, I think there's room for many different things. The two that you mentioned certainly, can both, live together in some form or fashion.
What do you look for in these early days? You're throwing so much new stuff at everybody. What do you look for to kind of get a sense of where they are and how they're progressing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we want is great effort every day, and then compete. That was a big thing coming into this camp for us. Is every day is high level competition. You're competing against yourself, competing for a role on the roster, and then getting to compete against the defense every day is going to make us better and better. And then I think for us offensively, it's, hey, can we have a really sound pre-snap operation? Those are some of the things early in camp. Day one we struggled with a little bit. I thought there was improvement day two. And then just assignment, alignment, execution. Are we getting lined up properly? Are we not having mental errors? And so through the first 2 days of practice, it's still early, but I'm happy with the progress we've made, and we just got to keep improving from there.
You evaluate the receiver position. Are you just looking for the players who play the best, or are you keeping an eye on complementary skill sets in that group?
Yeah, I think we have a very exciting group there, and I think just like you said, it's because there are so many complementary skill sets. We look for a ton of flexibility in terms of everybody can line up anywhere, and we can move people around, and it opens up a lot of exciting possibilities. But that's part of what makes this group really fun to work with. You have a lot of guys who can play off of one another in different ways, and like I said, it opens up a lot of possibilities for our offense just because that whole group, everyone's bringing something to the table.
When it comes to install, Sean, I guess going back to your playing days or your time in Green Bay, does anything change when it's new versus having the same process there for a couple of years?
I think there's a comfortability that comes maybe, but honestly, I think every camp I went into, you might have heard the play before, but you pick up a new coaching point each time through. I think that's part of the joy of coaching. For me is I'm installing this play now for the second time. These guys were they did a great job day one. I was really impressed with the retention after the summer break, which is a testament to our guys. They're pros. They were clearly studying over the offseason program over the break. But getting back to your question, I think that's part of the fun of coaching, the fun of playing is, yeah, I've heard this play before, but how am I going to take it to the next level? And for me, can I give them a coaching point that will help them execute it even better? Even though they know it, can I help them know it even better? And so each time through, I found, you can learn something new about the play that helps you execute it.
What's your view of the defense? What's your view of the defense? Third year under Fangio, a lot of Pro Bowlers on that side. What's your takeaway on them?
Yeah, I mean it's a tremendous group. I mean, Coach Fangio, he's as good as it gets in this league and has been for a long time. It's going to make us, it's a great competition for us every day going against an elite unit there. I know, playing against Philly the last couple of years when I was in Green Bay, they're tough. They're tough. They play hard. They play fundamentally sound. There's a lot of great players over there, and it's an awesome challenge for us every day to go against them, and it'll only make us better.
A lot of guys on offense have been here for several years and Nick's system and everything like that. How have you found the transition for these guys to what you're trying to teach? Like, how is that? Like, do you find they're still kind of set in their ways? Are they willing to learn? How has that been working?
No, it's been great. They've been super willing to learn. like I said, it's a great group of guys to work with. I think the biggest thing is so many of these, all these guys are so hungry for to learn. They're so hungry for the individual periods where we're teaching them technique, and so that's been that's all we want as a coach is guys that are willing to learn and want to work at it. And across our entire roster, those are the type of guys that Howie's brought in. Those are the type of guys we get to work with every day. And like I said, again, from the off-season program, you have a summer break and coming back. I mean, I thought day 1 and 2, and we had some pre-snap stuff to fix, but their retention from the spring was outstanding, and it allows for us to pick up right where we left off and kind of keep building from there.
Going back to Vic, how much he's emulated across the league, how instructive is it specifically with the pre-snap stuff, like the motions and some of the formation tells? How helpful is it for you to see how he responds to some of that stuff?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a chess match every day. You're scripting things in practice, and then you're studying, how is our defense responding to them, the things we're doing. And there might be some commonalities across the league, and other weeks there might not. It's a little bit, dependent on the other team's play caller and their defensive system and what we're doing to try to attack it. But certainly, each day we're studying and trying to see, okay, is there something we can build off of, that formation or that motion or that route distribution? And you're trying to gauge how are we able to affect the defense and what else could there be off of that. Some of that might carry over from one opponent to the next. Like you said, Vic's been emulated around the league, but there's differences too. So it's a little bit of a weekly thing, but you're always studying to see what's happening out there.
Do you want a true fullback, or do you, when you look about the duties that might be there, what are the thoughts where it could come out of someone out of the backfield or a tight end?
Yeah, I think without getting too far into the details of it, I think as multiple as we can be formationally, I think that's always something we want to try to do, and especially train these guys to do multiple things throughout camp. But a lot of it will be, there's a ton of practice left, so we have to, try to push these guys to learn as much as they can. How flexible can everybody be in terms of their alignments and assignments, while at the same time understanding we're putting them all in the best position to be the best players they can be.
As far as the backs catching the ball out of the backfield, how prominent is that in the offense? How does Saquon and Tank fit into that?
Yeah, it's again, don't want to get too far into specifics, but I think they're all very, very capable of that. And the backs have protection responsibilities. Sometimes they might be a free release back. So a lot of it kind of depends on the play. It depends on maybe what the defense is bringing and what we need from a protection standpoint. But they're all capable pass catchers and route runners. I think a lot of it sometimes comes down to the protection element and do we need a sixth man in protection, a seventh man in protection, so on and so forth. And then some of it is defensively. Is there a matchup we want to attack? But they'd certainly bring that skill set to the table, and it's something that every day, like I said, we're trying to push these guys and have everyone have as much flexibility with what they can do, so that when we get in the season, we know how do we put these guys in the best position possible.
And Jordan have said this scheme is offensive line friendly. I would like to hear why you think that is, and then obviously you're going to be taking from somewhere if you're going to be helping the offensive line. Where is the contraction coming from?
I think I understood the first part of your question, but I guess in terms of being O-line friendly, I think one of the things I preach, Coop preaches with the offensive line group every day is assignment commitment, right? We want these guys to go up there, know exactly where to go, and play fast. So if throughout all of our teaching, we want to make as many things black and white for them as possible, so that we're all on the same page and we're off and running. And if the defense changes a look, at least we all know exactly where we're going, and we're going with total assignment commitment to attack our aiming points, attack our targets, and then that will ultimately allow us to play fast, play physical, have the play style that we want. But we want to make everything as cut and dry, black and white for the offensive line, so that they really can fire off and have, like I said, the term we use is assignment commitment to what they're doing.
The second part about.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but if you are going, they're talking about help that they get help that maybe previously they didn't get. But does that, they talk about inside help, but obviously at some point.
Yeah, I think I understand your question now. I think one of the things that's unique about the offensive line is they are all working in conjunction with one another with the tight ends. So I think a lot of it is the time they spend with one another. It's a tight-knit group. The unit, there's a lot of times where, they may be working drills with one another, maybe different than a receiver who's running an individual route versus air. There's so much offensive lineman playing in conjunction with another offensive lineman or with a tight end, or how the backs, track fits into certain things. So yeah, I think all those things lend itself to your original question, where it's, it does feel, I think, to them that, hey, it's a friendly system where I have help because I'm working with my, with my running mate here, whether it be the tight end, running back, or offensive lineman.
Sean, how you spend your time on the practice field and in meeting rooms? Obviously, your background is at quarterback, so do you have to be intentional about moving around with the other position groups, or do you lean on your expertise and find yourself with the quarterbacks?
Yeah, no, I definitely have to be intentional. I'd say it's a blend of all those things. Some of it has to do with the special teams time. The quarterbacks aren't in the special teams meeting, so I can always kind of steal some time in the QB room there. The offensive line, unless we're using field goal block, they typically, you get a little bit extra meeting time to spend with them there. But yeah, that's been one of the adjustments for me. In this role is one, you're addressing the unit every day, and that's been great, having all of our unit meetings where the whole unit's in there together. I think that's so critical. But then, also, spending time with every group. That's been a lot of fun, honestly. It's been great to get to lean into the fundamentals of all the different positions.
With Jalen, there learnings through that, of like, I hadn't thought about it that way from that position group's perspective?
No, I think the biggest thing is, just you get questions from a different perspective. And so again, I think that part's fun, to get to talk about the details of combination blocks up front with the guys, and obviously, Coop and Ryan, they're in the meeting rooms all the time as a position coach answering those questions. But, when I'm in and out of all the different kind of units, that part's been a lot of fun.
When you were with Jalen the other day, he said as much as he's trying to learn from you, he's also trying to be of service to you, given his experience. How have you leaned on him throughout the install process and as you build this offense?
Oh yeah, it's been a constant, back and forth, and Jalen's had a ton of success in this league, and has played in a lot of games. So I always want to know the things that he feels comfortable with. If there's something that maybe we need to detail up further for him, because there's so many things that you love to dive into really the nitty gritty of a play and help him, help him just with total mastery. And I think a lot of it is, for me as a play caller, getting a feel for, what are his comfort calls, what are the things that, on a second and long, that he feels, super confident in. So it's been a great partnership, with Jalen since we got here. The back and forth's been outstanding. He asks really thought-provoking questions, and it's been a lot of fun to work with him.
John, have you spent much time studying other teams that transition to this type of offense, and what did you find in terms of how to get a system up and running as quickly as possible?
Yeah, we study, tons of teams around the league. That's the fun of the offseason. Before these players are in here, obviously we're implementing our offensive system, building our offense. But you're always looking around the league. You're always looking in college and finding new ideas from everywhere. And I think that's one of the fun parts about our staff. We have people who have familiar backgrounds. We have people from different backgrounds. And so ultimately it's about how do we make this offense, the Eagles offense, the best that it can be. And so, it's always evolving, and you're always looking to improve it. You're always saying, is there a new element that we can add that can really help us? So you look everywhere for those things.
So what about the game floor? Do you want to be upstairs to the booth or down the field?
We're still working through all that. I know we have some simulated games here at practice where I'll get to get a feel for both of them. But I think either way, it's going to be a good experience. There's certainly that's something we've already charted out a couple of days to kind of work through both of those options.
With Tanner and Andy as a splitting backups, does your experience help with that approach when you try to get guys as many reps as possible?
Yeah, I think it does. I think if nothing else, I've been in their shoes, and I know, hey, it's important to try to get these guys into a rhythm at practice and get them comfortable, and they've both done a great job. It's a very exciting group, top to bottom. All four of those guys are fun to work with, and ultimately, we want to get as many chances to get them all of them on the field and get as many reps as possible each day.
Thanks. Thank you.